I finished, and then for like 2 years after the race, the company that produced the race, they would send me an email with a photo of me crossing the finish line once a week, reminding me of the worst day of my life. You want a picture? You want a print of this? Put it up. No, that's the worst I've ever looked. And there's a 72-year-old woman beating me. Yeah.
Brian, have you ever ran a race that you didn't train for?
I have. The Flat Rock 50K one year. It was the year I was back going to school in the evenings to become an EMT, and it was literally like 2 weeks before the race. Josh Watson was like, and then this was back when they sold out, and Josh was like, hey, they just opened up some more spots. Do you want to go do this with me? And I'm like, sure. So I signed up for a 50K without running more than maybe a 10 or 12 mile run the whole entire year. Like, I had done some shorter stuff, but I was not at all trained up for that. And, we got down under the cutoff, but it was pretty rough.
Yeah. There's a lot of jokes out there about a half marathon, but I think I love the distance of a half marathon because for a lot of times a full marathon is intimidating. I'll never run a full marathon, all the things, but 13 miles is a little bit more approachable for a new runner. And so, and we'll just jump right into it. The topic today is going to be the TopCity Half Marathon, and we got Marc Price here. What's up, dude?
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah. How's it going, Mark?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you listen to Daniel Tosh, but he has I don't want to say that before your generation, that was my generation growing up, the Tosh.0 show, that was I think it was on MTV or VH1, or now those channels they're prehistoric for people now, but he has a funny bit about half marathons, about not like, well, you don't want to run a full marathon, but it's just funny. So
yeah, I remember training for my first half marathon, and it's terrifying when you've never done it because you're sitting there. I remember thinking, I'm gonna run for the length of watching an entire movie. And you just sit there and think about it, and it is terrifying.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't ever say only a half marathon, because
Never.
it is still a huge thing to take on for anybody.
Yeah, and I remember many moons ago, before I started running, my first ever race was the Topeka Half Marathon. And as for a lot of people around here, that was the case too. But I remember getting to mile 11, and it's like, oh my, I can't make it to 13. Oh no! And yeah, but a half marathon, the 13.1 mile distance is such it's a lot of people's first go from 5K to half marathon essentially, right? That's the most people, I would say.
I would say so too. I mean, you see 10K races on occasion, but they're not all that common. Especially, if you live somewhere big enough like Kansas City, you can probably go find 10Ks or stuff in between a 5K and a half marathon. But in somewhere like Topeka, you're pretty limited. Lots of 5Ks, but really not much longer than that. So.
Yeah. Have you ever actually ran a road half marathon?
Yeah. I've done KC Marathon. Rock the Parkway was my first.
Oh, okay, that's right.
And I've done the Bill Snyder, so.
Wait.
I do run roads on occasion.
Wait, you run roads? You used to?
I used to, back when I was faster. I've never been fast, but now everything is slow when you're running ultras. But
yeah. So we got Marc Price here, and I'm going to remember the question here. So I don't know if you know who Dylan Bowman is. He's a professional ultra runner. He has the Free Trail Podcast, but he opens every question with this, and we just kind of snagged it from him. What makes you you? So any unique attributes or whatever you got, what makes Marc Marc?
So I'd say probably what makes Marc Marc is a lot of it's my family. Grew up in Topeka, had a lot of family around when I was younger. Actually now live in the house I came home from the hospital in. My parents have left. I own the house, not living with my parents still. But it's family, my wife, my kids, and then we still call it family, but it's that extended family, the family you make your own, the friends that become family that, are as important as family at times. And I think that's really what makes me, the choices I make and the things I do.
Nice.
All right, very cool. So before we get into the Top City Half Marathon, we want to talk a little bit. I mean, you just said you grew up in Topeka, been here, sounds like your whole entire life.
Yes.
So growing up as a kid, what kind of stuff were you involved in? Did you participate in athletics or what? Just kind of curious what happened in your little Mark days that kind of led you to coming up with this Top City Half Marathon, helping come up with that idea.
So little Mark days to get to Top City, there would have been nothing. I was kind of, I wouldn't say didn't have any friends, but had kind of the neighborhood friends. Was never athletic. I was kind of always the heavier kid. The mile run in gym was probably the worst day of my life. One year I played football in middle school. Didn't play much. I was on the JV, and that was the only organized sports I had ever done in my life. Got interested in other things when I went to Topeka High. I did photography, some ceramics and stuff, but athletics was never something I would do other than watching. It was not going out and participating in any sports, not even pick up basketball. It was just really was not a active kid in that aspect when it comes to sports and being an active person.
So yeah, you weren't really active and stuff like that, but it sounded like you kept busy.
Yes.
You kind of had more the art side of things, I guess, so it kept your mind going at all times. But so I know you eventually got into running because you have done several runs with me and some with Devin. You've helped pace and crew people and ran your own races. So what led you to that?
So really what led me to that is had kids, kids were younger. I live over near Washburn. We would go to Collins Park a lot. We live a block from Randolph Elementary, go up to school with the kids, and it was one day we were I think it was at the park, and kind of chasing around after them, and it was, all of a sudden I'm winded, sitting there going, I can't even take my kids to the park and play with them. So kind of at that point, and I had made some pretty bad, or not bad choices, just I wasn't making good choices. It would be, you'd go to Bobo's, you'd order 2 cheeseburgers, fries, and a shake. And it was, a lot of overeating, not really paying attention to what I ate, drinking a lot of Coke, a lot, that was what I drank. And so it really kind of became this thing of, okay, I need to do something to get in shape. So kind of first thing was being a lot more selective with what I ate. The horrible things if you go and only get one hamburger that wasn't a double, it was just a single hamburger, real sacrifices in life, not eating ice cream every night. And then it was because I never felt, when I would go to gyms, never felt like I fit in. I just decided to find a 3-mile route around my neighborhood and started running that. And because I was kind of embarrassed, I'd go out, I'd get up early in the morning, partially because of kids, but also no one could see me run. I say run, but go out there. So I started a 3-mile loop. I'd do, not every day, but most days. And, first one, it's that good, I was very energetic, and I was going to go, see how far I could run. It was horrible. I was trying to run 1 minute and then do like a 30-second walk. Well, I kept trying that. I was getting frustrated with the time tracking. So finally I started going I'm going to run to that corner, to the light pole. And, probably within a couple months, I'm probably down 50 pounds. I was well over 300 pounds. I honestly don't know how much I was when I was at my heaviest. I just know I was big. But finally, ran the first mile, and then finally ran the full 30-minute or full 3 miles without walking. And so honestly, I did that for probably a good year. And after I probably lost over 100 pounds, the fittest I'd ever been in my life, kids would climb in bed and all of a sudden they'd hit something on my leg and it would hurt. This probably isn't part of the podcast. It shouldn't be part of the podcast, but I'm fine with it. So I go to the doctor because I have, really bad pain in my leg. Only when kids would climb over if I hit it. Well, it turns out I had cancer. Really rare synovial sarcoma in my leg. It was a really small spot. And going in there, the doctors, it's one of those deals where they're asking all these questions, and it was, well, have you had weight loss? And it was the one question that really got me mad because all the doctors would ask, do you have weight loss? And I'd say, yes. And they'd ask how much I weighed a year ago, and it was how much do I weigh now, and they'd be like, oh. I'm like, no. This was not cancer that did this. This was me working very hard. And, you know, I got very lucky. I caught my cancer very early, had really good doctors. It was on my leg, ended up having surgery, have a pretty good scar from it, had radiation, you know, and so that derailed me a little bit on the running, but I stayed in, you know, didn't put on the weight because I was watching what I was eating. Kind of after that, that would have been about 2009, I decided I wanted to do a 5K. So found there was a Bill Cell 5K, I think it was a short-lived 5K in Lawrence. I did that 5K, and then I just went back to running. Just doing my little bit of running here or there. And I did not do another organized race till probably 2014. Was my next actual organized race I did.
Wow. So I've known you, Mark, for a little bit now, but I think I originally met you on Shane. Did you run with Shane and Ed when they were doing their 50 miler?
No,
or were you running?
I might have come out that day, but I know I didn't run with them.
Okay, yeah, and then I've seen you crew and stuff. Have we ever actually ran together? I can't. We've run with so many different Buckleheads. I can't always remember.
I say probably in passing here or there,
Yeah.
but not. I know we haven't spent a lot of miles together.
Yeah. So, but thanks for sharing that. Like all of that was like, oh my god. I know Mark, but I was like, wow. I didn't like going from like I just think the stories of like those drastic weight loss stories are so fascinating to me and so inspiring and all the things. Like we've had several people on the podcast with all kinds of stories now. Each one of them are different, but I'm curious as to, I guess, was there, like when you first started the weight loss journey, was there like a moment that clicked where it was just like, okay, now's the time, or like sometimes it's a reflection, sometimes it's, you know, whatever it may be. Was there a moment like that? Like as you were you're full into being a dad, right? And
yeah.
all the family things.
Yeah, a lot of it really was that day at the park, just getting winded,
Yeah,
and then you know, I always remember it as being really close when I first started running, because I'd run early in the morning and not having a clue. I never had a headlight, so I'd always just, you know, I knew the streets around my house. I didn't need one. Well, I'm out running one day, and for some reason I had in my mind there was a curb cut, and so I want to say it was probably within the first month of running. So I'm out there, and I trip over this curb. I'm a good mile or so from my house. I go down, I skin up my elbow, you know, get up, there's blood everywhere, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, what do you do now? And I'm like, well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. If I call my wife, I'm going to be in more pain and probably more blood. You know, so you wander home, and I'm cleaning up, and she comes in and kind of freaks out because she sees blood everywhere. And that's kind of one of those moments of like, you know, a year before, heck, if I would have fallen, it probably would have been, how do I get home? How do I get the car? This was, you know, I did it. I got home, which, you know, stupid, it's less than a mile. It's still it wasn't that far. You know, I got cleaned up, and the next day got back out there. It's just kind of, that I think was kind of thing that was like, okay, this actually is fun. I was enjoying it by that point, to where I enjoyed getting out, having the time, listening to music, and I think at that time I had a Iron Man watch that would control my iPod, so I could change my songs while I was running and not have to pull my iPod out. I mean, that's how advanced I was back in the day.
I remember those nanos. I had, was it a nano or a shuffle?
So back in the old days, before those, you actually had to have a big iPod. There were no small iPods.
Okay, I remember having one of those.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, you probably met Mark because you paced Shane during his first time either.
Yes.
So, and you paced,
but they did
Shane.
did the 50 miler before that though, like COVID.
Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah. See, I think the day of his 50 miler, I wasn't feeling good. I think I ended up riding my bike out and met up with you guys on Landon somewhere.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah.
So I know you at least met him during Shane's 100 miler. So yeah, it's, you know, your whole story about you decide to get in shape, you start running, you lose a lot of weight, and then you find out you have cancer, which is tough to deal with. You know, you had surgery, radiation, all the treatments. it would have been very easy to be like, you know, I'm out of shape again just because you couldn't train. Like, what was it hard to get going again, or were you just like waiting to get past all that and start getting out exercising?
No, it really was. I really got through it with a lot of positive thinking. A lot of people don't know this about. Not a lot of people don't know I had cancer, but a lot of people don't know. So my cancer, the year I had it, there was 800 people worldwide that were diagnosed with it. Actually, just a couple weeks ago, I was talking to I was at an appointment. Someone brought it up, had to look it up, and came back and was like, "You're lucky. That's a real aggressive cancer," because it really is. We found out on a Friday that I got a call back from the doctor's office. I'd had a surgery. So the typical way synovial sarcoma is found is they will find a little bump, they remove it, realize it's cancer, and then you have to go in for the second surgery. Everyone at the first surgery is the OOP surgery. So I had my OOP surgery. They thought it was a lipoma, no big deal. They sent it off to get checked out, and I got a call back from my original doctor on a Friday saying, they found something in your labs. We had to send off to the University of Nebraska. You'll hear from an oncologist on Monday. And I think they said this was synovial sarcoma. And I'm not that old. We did have Google, so, you know, go home. Me and my wife spend the weekend Googling what I had, and it wasn't good. I mean, all the stories you're reading were not good stories. So pretty early on, kind of got into a pretty positive mindset of you can only control what you can't control. And pretty much everything with my cancer, until I was told I couldn't control it, so I just had to kind of go with that mindset. So a lot of it became, what do I know? What can I control? How do I move forward? So that helped me kind of get positive. And then after everything was okay, and I was in for one of my checkups, there was a younger couple. I mean, I was in my 30s then, so I mean, it was really two younger people that were sitting there complaining about having to spend their day doing tests, because it used to be I'd go in one day, come back the next day, and it was 3 times a year. Well, these two people were sitting there complaining about wasting their day, and you know, at that time it would have been Abby would have been 5, so a 5 and a 7-year-old at home, and I'm sitting there going, it's one day in my life. I've got 2 young kids at home. What's one day to make sure I'm going to be here for, you know, the next, you know, at that time till they're 18, so you're thinking next 10 years. And so I really got into that attitude of, this stuff doesn't matter. I've gotten through it, got to get through it to be around for my kids. And that was really, I think, what kept me going was, you know, being there for my kids and being positive, because, and I'm sure there were days I weren't, but, you know, overall, you got to live through it. You got to do what you can, and, you know, look on the sunny side of it, and not dwell on the negative, the things you can't control. And I know you had probably some tough days, because you had some troubles.
Yeah, and it is like you try to be positive, and I watch out, because it makes some people mad when people hear this, but I had, you know, a good cancer, because it's like a 5-year survival rate of like 99%. Like, it's almost like if something good does go wrong, it's like very rare. But there's still those days you're going, someone's got to be that 1%, you know. But yeah, like you said, like you could look back at like your My Chart, you know, online, and you probably saw a stretch where it was just, you pull up your labs and it was just, you know, this long for a 6-month period or whatever. So, but like you said, there's nothing you can do other than accept it and try to make the best out of it. And it's not easy to do, but yes, with anything in life, it's always a challenge. I mean, and I think that's where, for me, if I'm having a rough mental day, if I go for a run or any kind of exercise, it is helpful. You know, so I don't know if you found that to be helpful or not when you were doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gotten out of the habit as much as I need to do a lot more running, but those, just getting out there, whether it's by yourself or with some friends, and just getting your mind off of what's, you know, the tough parts of the world, and, you know, and catching up with, you know, a couple weekends ago I went with Shane and them, and, you know, just catching up and seeing what's going on, and sometimes it is even talking about work, but, you know, just letting go and not having to deal with normal day to day.
Yeah, and even I know there's studies, but I don't think any of it's like scientifically proven. But I don't even know if I'm going to describe it correctly. But like when you're diagnosed with something as significant as that, like the placebo effect, if you will, like of just simply having a positive mindset over something that could be very bad, actually plays a big role in like how the disease or cancer like progresses. You know, I've listened to many people talk that, like, honestly, I have an aunt that has like a brain tumor, like it's some sort of cancerous tumor, but she just refuses to acknowledge that it's even there. And it has not, like, they gave her a year, and that was 4 years ago, and it hasn't progressed, but she just doesn't even acknowledge that it's there. And it's there, it's just not getting worse. And it's like, it's so interesting, just having a positive mindset and controlling what you can control has such a big impact on like a long-term outcome in a lot of cases. So after all that stuff, you got back into running and started getting back outside and doing all the things.
Yeah, I got, had kids, so I was busy, kept doing my 3 mile loop, and both my kids got into swimming and were competitive swimmers for quite a while. So spent a lot of weekends at swim meets. A lot of times there'd be times take them to practice, go for a run, take them, they'd be at a swim meet, you go for a run during the swim meet because the swim meets are horrible and long and you have plenty of time. And it was one October sitting at a swim meet here, I think it was True Blue Igloo. One of the other dads turns to me and goes, "So you ever done half marathon?" And I'm like, "Well, how hard could it be? It's, only 13 miles thing." And so sitting, I think, in the stands of a Hummer, I signed up for Topeka to Auburn. Never done more than 3 miles, and was about to learn what it was going to take.
Yeah, so at that time, were you running with Shane Clemens yet? Because I know you and him ran a lot together for a while, and you guys even did the I-35 challenge, I believe. So
that would have been about 2014. At that time, Shane was not running. He used to not run, if you knew this. He used to be really lazy. So had a few friends that were in the swim parents that ran, so we'd run together there, and I learned a whole lot because I had never done that sort of distance, and that winter was kind of a snowy winter, and so to avoid the ice on the roads, I jump up in the grass. Well, learned real quick, if you're not used to the unevenness, your ankles will get really irritated, and so I ended up having, freaking out. I think it was about a month before Topeka to Auburn because my ankles were hurting. The doctor's like, "Man, just take some ibuprofen. It's because you switched how you're running." And I got through my training and got through that first Topeka to Auburn, which I hated because they didn't tell you there was gravel, and I didn't know there was gravel until I was ready for the hills. The hills didn't bug me, but I wasn't ready for the gravel. And kind of after that, I kind of caught the bug. I mean, that was because at 2015 is when I did my first marathon. Same dad, after I did the half, was like, "Hey, we should do a marathon together." So sign up for, Kansas City Marathon back then. He didn't do a marathon until a few years later. Felt really bad about that, but signed up for that. Did, I think did Rock the Parkway that year, did some other ones. I don't think it was till probably about I can't remember, 17 or 18 that I first did a race with Shane.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny you mentioned about your buddy didn't run one until 3 years later because Farrell Hoover, who we had on here as a guest a couple weeks ago, had mentioned somebody talked him into running a marathon, and I think like 3 days after the marathon, he called his friend up and was like, "Hey, when am I going to stop hurting?" And the guy's like, "I don't know, I've never ran a marathon." Yeah. So it's kind of that same thing. I'm like, "Hey, you should go do this. I'm not going to do it, but you should go do it." So, yeah. So you did your marathon. You've done some half marathons. You kind of just kept that up for a while, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, really honestly, up until about COVID, we had been pretty active. I think you mentioned did the I-35 challenge with Shane. actually Shay and I's first race together, I think, was the Royals 5K charity run. I did completely beat him at that too. Really smoked him, but he kind of has since smoked me. But what actually got towards the Top City is my wife had some sinus surgery, and I think I was driving her nuts, and she had noticed there was a post on Facebook for a Westboro running club, and they were having a group run that afternoon. I think she wanted me out of the house, so she goes, "Why don't you go to this group run?" So I go up to, it was at Josie's Bakery up in Westboro, and that's where I first met Joe Vaughter. And so for the longest time, him and I were kind of the Westboro Running Club, which was just a couple guys getting together, going running. And after about a year or so of just hanging out with him and talking and sharing, you go to all these other towns, you go to Kansas City. I'd been to Des Moines at that point. I'd gone down to Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, going up to Kansas City to a lot of the races up there. Done one down in Wichita. The thing that always stuck out was the neighborhood support. You get out there and you get in these neighborhoods and you never remember where they are, but you always want to go back. But the neighbors coming out and cheering you on. There's one lady, I'm not sure if she's still there, always stuck out to me at the Garmin Marathon. It was not in one of the best neighborhoods that goes through, but there was a lady there that every year would sit out a little TV tray, have water and candy, because she wanted to support the runners going by. And that meant, to me, that's meant a lot, because here was someone taking their time and their money and coming out to support me to do something stupid I decided to do. And so I wanted to, share that share Topeka with everyone, because that's kind of what I think some of those races are. Is you're really sharing the city with the participants of the race. And we had Topeka to Auburn, but it was, it's more of a country run. It's not that city feeling that you get in the actual urban races you do.
Yeah.
Brian, have you ever ran a road marathon?
A road marathon?
Yeah.
It was the Kansas City Marathon.
Okay,
so,
okay. So I went from trails to, I've ran the Kansas City Marathon 4 times, the Kansas City Garmin Marathon, and the newest edition. So like the first half you go up downtown and all that stuff, and the second half is through the neighborhoods. Essentially, like you go south and east or whatever. But that was my first time experiencing like that city feel of a race. And then, like you said, going through some of those neighborhoods, like there were full-on picnic tables, like at this point when I ran it, with like shots of Fireball and all the alcohol, all the gummy bears, all the things. I never experienced that feel before. And like, so you describing Topeka wanting to do that in Topeka is yes, like all the things. Just a little side note too, I ran the Fiesta 5K this last year up in Oakland, and like it was so much fun having like that neighborhood too. I don't know, like we'll talk where the TopCity Half goes, but that was fun. So, but side little tangent there. That's why like I'm so intrigued by. I love the trails, I love the ultras, I love the things, but this year I really want to get fast at a marathon and start running some of these city marathons to kind of experience that city, or like whether it's like big goal Boston Marathon. Once Rob Hayes described that, was like, oh my god, I want to run it once, but I don't know if I'm that fast. But yeah, side little tangents, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would say I'm 99.9% a trail guy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if I run on roads, it's usually because the trails are too muddy or snow or ice. But I do I think I ran like the Winter Wonderland 5K here in Topeka,
yeah.
which is at night through a campground at Lake Shawnee. It's a great race, but you don't really have people out there cheering you on. And I think my first race over 5K was Rock the Parkway in Kansas City Half Marathon. And I think there was 8,000 or 10,000 runners. So it was like a whole different world to me. And I ran some other half marathons and the full marathon, and I don't really like running on roads, but there is something special about having people there almost the whole entire way cheering you on. It does really help, and it's a really cool experience.
Yeah. So Topeka, you wanting to do that here in Topeka,
Yeah, so like I say, that's where it started. Joe and I talking about it, and I don't know if you know Joe, but he's a bad influence because he's the type of guy that goes, okay, then why don't we do it? And I've never done anything like that before. So that would have been back in, I think, late 2018 is when we kind of started having that discussion. Started meeting with some people at the PD, and really quickly found out the officers we knew weren't the people we really needed to talk to. So it became a lot of, okay, who do we need to really talk to? Who do we need to? How do you do this? How do you create a course? How do you deal with traffic? How do you plan it out? The original course, to me, is a really big thing for me because it really kind of hits all the places that I kind of remember as a kid. Growing up in Central Topeka, the original course kind of hit all the neighborhoods, all the places I would go and hang out. We can't do it anymore because of the viaduct reconstruction. The hope would be one day to get back to it once that viaduct's done. It hit a lot more neighborhoods. We still get some good neighborhoods out of it, but so we came up with the course. Found the right people to talk to at the police, and then all of a sudden you realize all this stuff costs money, and you have to figure out how to pay for it. So we started down that road. Started down the metal piece. One piece for me was on metals was always wanting a new metal. Topeka Auburn was always a favorite of mine, but the one thing I think always let me down about it was the metal.
Got a bunch of them.
I understand why they do it. Doing this for now 6 years, I fully understand the amount of money you can save and some of the stress you save by having a similar medal year after year. But the number of races I've chosen to go to because you see a medal, that was something I really wanted. So the first thing I really wanted was to kind of do it train based. I don't know if anyone really knows this, is I was gonna have locomotive based medals because Topeka, Atchison, Santa Fe, really big in Topeka, Great Overland Station, the Union Pacific there. I actually had reached out to BNSF because to use their logo in any way, you have to get the permission. Well, I mocked up a medal in it. Instead of having where it said Santa Fe, I had taken that out and like the engine number was 13.1, had TopCity Half Marathon, and some, the date were in the logo, and they're like, no, you can't modify our logo. If you're going to use our logo, you have to use it. So I scrapped that idea, and that's where we kind of pivoted to the different metal, got that all designed up for the first year. The fun part I learned real quick is lead times. I didn't realize what you had for lead times for metals, and we were lucky to find someone here in Topeka who could just, because we didn't know what we were getting into, we didn't know how many metals we needed. Not having much money, we didn't want to order a whole bunch of extra metals and throw them away, so we found a local company here who could do them on short notice or with a shorter lead time. Got those ordered, and also, if you think back to that time, 2020, things started shutting down in China earlier than America. Mm-hmm. So when we were looking back in, December, January, they were starting to shut down factories and stuff because of COVID. So we started talking to people, and it was, well, normally you could order, I think for normal races back in those days, you needed like a 3-month lead time. Well, all of a sudden it's shifted to, because of the factory shutting down, they're like, well, you're not going to get the metals in time. Found the local place. We ordered our metals.
What's the local place to give them a shout
out? West Side Stamps is who we used the first few years.
Just to give them a shout out, because I think they do Skyline.
Yeah.
Skyline scrambled.
I know that. I think they've helped there. I think they help. They've done Sterling. Curtis there has been great to us over the years, between shirts and helping us get medals and dealing with me and my wife. Curtis at West Side's been really good. So yeah, we're figured the metal side out, which was a lot harder. Figured out the how many volunteers do you need? That's the more you talk to races, that's probably one of the biggest thing I don't think people take into account, is how many volunteers it takes to put on a race. I will say that now when I run races, the appreciation I have for volunteers out there is a whole lot more, because without the volunteers, these races really don't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So started pulling together, how do you hold together volunteers, and looking at beginning of March of 2020, things were looking really good. We had a really good race. It was gonna be really exciting, and kind of then became the interesting year of races for with COVID hitting, and had to figure out what we were going to do to change things. And we quickly pivoted to I think a month out we pivoted to a virtual race. And I work for the county, so I was sent through a lot of meetings at that time, so I kind of was not listening to any background room stuff, but just listening to what was being said, listening to what the governor was saying. Just kind of realized trying to have an event like that wasn't going to happen. And I want to try to give people as much notice as possible, so that's why we shut down. And now we came back the next year. Had a pretty good year considering I think all races that following year past COVID struggled, and have just been doing pretty good, growing our numbers. Had to have a course change earlier because of the viaduct, and the course we have now, that's something we're just trying to keep consistent until we have to make a change, or can make a change. Being able to go to all the places we go now, I guess that's something I left out when we started having the discussions. That's when Evergy Plaza was being built. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to be the first event at Evergy Plaza in 2020. We were actually going to be the first thing when it opened, and it, to me, has kind of been the centerpiece for the race, because it is a great place to be able to gather afterwards, hang out, have a post-race thing, because that's another thing I left out too, is to me, a lot of these races, what make them is the post-race. Mm-hmm. To me, it's kind of like the ultra. What makes ultras are the aid stations and the volunteers there. That's kind of, for a road marathon, to me, it's, yes, you get to go run and see the city, but then what do you get after the race? What makes you want to come back? And that post-race event is one thing I really wanted to make sure we had. And Evergy Plaza gave us that place to come and gather and be able to hang out after the race, after we were done.
Yeah. And going back to that COVID year, I knew you and Shane at the time, and so we kind of all were going, yeah, this race is not going to happen. And I remember you guys changing it to virtual. I mean, I'm sure some people were upset, but it was out of your guys' hands. But the one thing I remember is you guys mailed out all the shirts, all the medals, and I remember you guys even going, hey, there's going to be an extra gift for you guys. I don't know if that was ever planned or if that was totally for COVID, but you guys sent out those gooder Topeka TopCity sunglasses, and I still have them. I still wear them. So it was just cool that you guys took a bad situation and you did the best you could, and even probably went above what a lot of races were even doing at that time.
Yeah, I think all the races were doing as best they could. I was a little sad, and there was a few people that when we canceled weren't exactly happy, and I get why they were unhappy. You had a plan, you had something you wanted to do, you had a goal you were going towards, you paid money towards this event. And one thing I think that this helped me realize is all these 90% of races are volunteers. It's not people out there making millions of dollars. It's people just trying to put on an event within their city to have a good time. And that's what I think people need to remember. Yes, you pay your hard-earned money for these races. But listening to Chase and Casey, they're not doing this because of all the money they're bringing on the races. They're doing it because they want to have events for people to enjoy. And that's what I think 90% of race directors are doing. And having the grace when things don't always go as planned, because that's probably the one part most people don't realize is, I think I talked to Kansas City, Dave Bouchard, I think it's Bouchard, I think that's how you say his last name, Kansas City, he says there's always, as easy and well organized that is, there's little things that don't quite go as you planned, but the volunteers, the race directors, the people putting it on, make sure you don't know that, and in the end of the day, having that good race, you can get up to the start line, go get your however long you're going, whether it's a 5K, fun run, or half marathon or marathon, just getting out there and enjoying it, coming back and having the good time afterwards at the post race is, important to remember. People are putting in a lot of hard work, unpaid, to make these things happen.
Yeah, I remember running that half marathon COVID year because I ran it from my house. I looked up a picture because it's on my wall. My little son he was like, I think he was 3. He was 3, but that medal right there, because you mailed it to us, and he's like, "Dad, your medal came in from running that. You went on that race." And yeah, and I think just I hope that helped build whatever the word I'm looking for, like the customer, like you sent the shirts out, you sent the medals out, you didn't just say, "Hey, you're SOL," and I think that helps, build confidence with the runners and the customers to come back and to "Hey, let's do this again." And yeah, I'm stoked to run it this year.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I will say I've made some great friends because of the race, and not people helping put on, just people who run the race. That COVID year, I think we would have probably dropped off on your doorstep if you were here in Topeka.
I think so, yeah.
Because in Topeka we did door delivery. When we announced that we were doing door delivery in Topeka, I had one of the registered runners who lived in Lawrence reach out and say, "If you get me the packets, I'll do it for you here in Lawrence." And cool. Susan King, who did that, her and I have become friends because of it. I mean, like I said, there's multiple people because of this who run the race. We become friends with. I probably obsess a little more over it than I should. I a lot of times can tell who's run multiple years. I recognize names. I will look through a whole lot of the registrations that they come in, and okay, so I know this person from here, or I recognize this person from this race. I recognize this person from this. We've had somehow, I think every year we have had an international runner, which to me doesn't really mean anything, but I think it's pretty neat. We had I believe a gentleman from Spain who came in the first actual year in person and run the race, and he was actually, I believe he was spending like 3 weeks here, and he was planning on running like 10 races or something. He was traveling around partially getting 50 states. Next couple years we had some people from Germany. This year I think we have a person from France coming in. So it's kind of fun to see where people are registering from, see the people that keep coming back. Those sunglasses, you brought them up. That was people paid good money for races. You paid good money. We're gonna have some extra dollars. So how do we add that extra piece to that value add for the race? And I think it was actually in 2019, Kansas City, I think, had done branded Gooders. So we just reached out to Gooder that I think in early March when we canceled and started having that conversation, and they let you design. At that time, they don't do that program anymore. You can't do customized Gooders. So we got them designed, and all of a sudden on my front porch showed up a whole bunch of Gooders.
Right, and I don't know, I'm assuming you notice it. I don't know, Devin, if you notice, you're out running and you see some go by with the yellow glasses and the blue lenses, you're like,
you know where it's from.
You ran Top City back in 2020, so we're in year 5, right? Getting ready to start?
Well, technically it's year 6. It'll be the fifth in-person event. The first year, I still count it as our first year because last year was our 5th year for the event.
Okay, and then for everyone listening, we keep saying half marathon, but you guys also have a 5K as well, right?
Yeah, it's a 5K half marathon. Starts mentioned at Evergy Plaza, goes through a majority of the city. The more you run, the more you realize towns are small, and you start at Evergy Plaza. You get to go around the Capitol, head out onto the trail down by Brown v. Board. You get off over kind of by the state hospital grounds, or not state hospital, the VA on Randolph, where the Shunga Trail comes off. Go over into the Westwood neighborhood, through Westboro, through Collins Park area, and then head back to downtown to finish it out.
Very cool. And then I'm assuming the 5Ks also just kind of start at Evergy, go out around the Capitol, add a little bit and back?
Yeah, so the 5K starts at the Evergy, goes around at Brown v. Board. You do a loop around one of the blocks there and then head back.
So yeah, so very cool. I mean, you're hitting up the Topeka Capitol, Brad versus Board, and seeing all the, you know, you had to reroute the course, but you're still seeing, like you said, quite a bit of Topeka.
Well, we are the only half marathon that runs around the Capitol. I mean, that is if you think about it, you know, not many places you get to go run around the capital of Kansas and get to see it in a race.
Yeah. How many? So, I guess, do a lot of people know you as like the race director, or do you have any like cool stories of people coming up to you and saying, "This is my first race. I love your city. I love," you know, like, have you had any just experiences like that?
Oh, definitely. You know, people, and I keep saying me, but it's a group of people. So when I say me or it's my race, it's really a group of volunteers that put this on. I want to put that out there, especially my very understanding wife who's been with me through the whole thing. But no, we definitely, the people do recognize me as Top City, and the other volunteers are happy to have me be that person. But you know, we've had, you know, members people who've run it who multiple first time runners. I know Tiffany Littler, who's used to be on KSNT. It was her first half marathon, and she's come back multiple years. There was a couple, I think 2 years ago, that got I think it was the girlfriend was running it, but he reached out to me, and actually as she finished, he proposed. I believe that's the right way, but we had a proposal at the finish line. Like I say, the international people have always been very complimentary. You know, partially I try to thank people. If I see people, I want to thank them for coming and supporting this event, because without the people running it, but you know, always had people very, very complimentary of it and enjoyed it. And you know, you want to, it's like you run a 100, you want to think someone would put themselves through pain and thank you for making themselves allow you to put them through pain. And you know, had many people, because somehow when we changed our course, we've always had an uphill finish, which means you have a downhill start, but we've always had an uphill finish, which I've had a few people a little upset, but most people, you know, kind of poke me and, you know, and give you that ribbing of thanks for making sure I didn't have too fast of a finish because I had to run up the hill.
And that downhill start gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
Because everybody takes off flying. So we haven't talked about the date yet, but May 3rd, right?
Yes.
And so I would just say, if you're listening, you know, racing can sound intimidating, but if you've been running any at all, you have, like, from the time this episode comes out, you have roughly 3 months. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Roughly about 3 months to get ready for it. So that is enough time. If you do have some running base already, that's enough time to get ready for a half marathon. If you don't have any running base at all, it's still plenty of time to get ready for the 5K. What is the cutoff time for those races? Just
So technically for the 5K, there would be no cutoff, because it would be the 3.5 hours we have for the half. So 3.5 is what we have out there for the half marathon, and that a lot of that's just, you know, we are going through downtown, we're going through a lot of city streets, and you know, the PD, which has always been very gracious on donating their time, and the officers and our volunteers that are going to be out there, you know, not only do we want to get the streets open, but want to let those people get back to what they've got going on. So it's a 3.5 hour from the half marathon starts at 7:30, so you have till about 11 o'clock to finish it.
okay. So that gives you time to walk the whole entire 5K if you want to just get out and walk. And same way with the half marathon, I don't know if that would give you time to walk all of it, but you could walk a large majority of it and still get to participate and be involved in that if it's something you're interested in. Just want to throw it out there for listeners.
Yeah. And just, we talk a lot on this podcast about just, Topeka doesn't have the best reputation, but like the ones that live here and the ones that are involved, we know that Topeka's awesome. That's kind of like why we started this podcast in the first place, was to highlight many things, not just Topeka, but Midwest in general. But the state of Kansas has so many awesome selections and races that, like, you know, you might have the random traveler that is just like, hey, Topeka has this race. I'm doing this loop. I'm going to stop in Topeka and I'm going to check out the state capital of Kansas. And just a random question. mainly because I have no idea. Like, was there ever a talk of doing like a Topeka full marathon and just two loop it, or like any sort of course, or is that just another undertaking in itself?
It's another big undertaking. I will say, if you are around someone who does or is putting on a full marathon, you're doubling. Actually, you're over doubling. Most fulls are going to be at least a 7-hour time limit, and the amount of closures that has to put on, and now you have to have your law enforcement, police there to help keep it going, and all the volunteers. It's a big undertaking, and the probably one of the second biggest hurdles is what the course would actually be. How do you find a space, short of doing doing a second loop or something, to get that extra 13 miles? I mean, even if you tried just to say, let's just run it on the trail to be able to minimize the road closures, you're still talking, I think you'd have other road closures that you'd have to deal with because of where the trail crosses places. Yeah. It's a full is a whole nother beast if you're trying to do it as a road marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like downtown Kansas City, they're shutting down Grand and the Plaza and some of those places, till past noon, till the afternoon. So it's a huge undertaking. It keeps coming up. It would be interesting to see where it would go, but it would definitely need a whole lot of additional volunteer support. We normally get our volunteers, and we've done it every year, but like I say, I think you'd end up having to double the volunteers just to be able to give people breaks and be able to handle that.
Yeah. Well, I think in Topeka, I think keeping it at the half is perfect, and it's just the right, because I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, like all the other Kansas marathons, they're all just 2-loop half marathons, right? Like Salina's 2 loops, Wichita Prairie Fire's 2 loops, isn't the Abilene 2 loops of the same course, right? So they're all
I think the exception would be Garmin Olathe, I believe, or not?
That's technically Kansas, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one, and I don't know all the fulls, but I think that's the only full that's not 2 looped.
Yeah. So I think keeping it like a city half marathon is perfect, and it's great. And I know a lot of people that have run it. I know a lot of people running it this year that are stoked. I challenged some Buckleheads to try and beat me if they got it in them.
Well, and for you Buckleheads, if you're going, it's only 13.1 miles. I'm used to doing 100 miles on a weekend. You can always the next day go up to Lincoln and do the flyover challenge. This year we partnered with Lincoln, the Lincoln Marathon. That is the Sunday after us on the 4th. And so if you do Top City and then go up and do Lincoln Half or Lincoln Full, we actually have a second medal you'll get for free.
Oh, that's cool.
All you've got to do is pay for the races. You don't even have to pay for the challenge. If you sign up for one race, sign up for the other race, we'll be up there on Sunday giving out your medal.
Very cool. You said that's the Lincoln Half or the Full?
Yes.
Okay.
That's cool.
So and that's what, about a 3-hour drive? It's not too far from
It's just over 2.
Just over 2 hours. So check that out. Again, Lincoln is, I think, about the size of Topeka as far as
it's pretty
population.
It's pretty
is it bigger? Yeah. But anyway, not really local, but it's still a Midwest thing. So get out and support this. I'm curious. You talked about international runners, and I see you guys posting. You get we now have runners from Michigan and Minnesota and wherever. I'm curious, what's the most out-of-state runners or the most states covered in 1 year at Top City?
I think the most we've had is, I think it's 19. And I think we're around 11 states this year. We just added Oklahoma, just actually the other day. Strangely, and it's I don't have an explanation for it. Strangely, Oklahoma has always been one of the last states that's around Kansas to join. We, get obviously Missouri we get pretty quick. Iowa and Nebraska seem to jump in. First 2 years we've had Colorado because of someone and I can't think of her name right now. She went to high school with you and Shane. But
I can't think of, I know who you're talking about, but I can't.
But Colorado always came in, and Oklahoma has always been like one of the last surrounding states, as I call it, that joins in.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Like I said, it's just a great thing for Topeka. I mean, we're getting more people in to check out the city, and just like you said, it's a chance to meet new friends. Like running has just been an amazing thing for me.
It's changed our lives.
Right. And so yeah, just come check it out. Also, as far as volunteering, just keep in mind, you don't have to be a runner. You don't have to know anything about racing. Just sign up. Mark and everybody else will help you guys, learn what you got to do.
Yeah, like I said, I think we need a little over 100 I think it's about 130 volunteers to put the event on. If you do have a group, if you have a group of 15, some sort of organization you're trying to raise money for, we actually reach out to us. We will pay for volunteers for a group of 15. Kind of makes our life easier because you coordinate with one person. But so if you have a group that's interested in volunteering, let us know and we'll work with you on that. Or if you just want to go out there and sit on the side of the road and have a bunch of crazy people run by you and thank you for sitting in a chair, do that too.
Yeah, and it's fun volunteering. It's just seeing people out working hard. It's just a cool thing to see. I'm just kind of curious too. You got 5K and a half marathon. You said this is the 6th year for it. Do you guys have plans for, anything else like a fall half marathon or any other kind of races, or is it just like let's just keep this going for a while and build slowly?
A lot of it's keep this going. Actually, if you look back, we were very ambitious because I think Devin's mentioned it. We tried to pick up where the not Miracle on Kansas, but the rescue run stopped happening, and we started to do the keeping it local on the Friday after Thanksgiving. I think it was Friday after Thanksgiving, right? It quickly became aware we're a bunch of volunteers and we actually have other jobs, so we were really working 2 jobs, and just the coordination, everything just kind of was pretty tiring. So we did keeping it local for a couple years. I've got a whole bunch of ideas would be fun to do. I think at this point, if we're looking to grow, I have some ideas for honestly just for some more fun things that I think are more organic and not even really organized runs. Just I know there's been talk of the Chipotle challenge around here doing I know they used to do a beer mile around McDonald Field. I think just not even having an organized run, just have today's the day to do it. Just a fun thing where people come out and do an event like that would be the more fun thing, just get people out there. There's been the talks of doing a Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day run, 4th of July run. That just, when you start talking that many races, you need some full-time people that are able to put those on, because those are, putting them on just one run is a pretty full-time job.
Right. And just kind of popped in my head, might be a fun thing if you talk to Jonathan Prosser and kind of do I know they're a couple months apart, but do something special if you do the Skyline Scramble and the TopCity Half. Just kind of just anything to support local stuff. Yeah. It's just great.
And that's the great thing about the Skyline. If you're trying just to figure out where you are, you don't have to run it. I mean, honestly, I was a little sad. I thought I was going to be the first loser. I don't know what it would technically be, but the person with the lowest scored. I hadn't been running last year when I did it, and my daughter had a thing up in Kansas City, so I couldn't stay very long. And unfortunately, Les beat me last year as being in the last place, and I was, but that's the great thing about it is you can go out there, do the one loop, do the 12 hours, and be out there and cover a lot of loops. Just getting out there and just trying. Sometimes it's not always about finishing. The story I'll share, when one year I was injured and I was volunteering at the Kansas City Marathon, and I was actually at the split where the marathon and half split off. And early on in the race, there was a guy probably like Devin that was just flying, and he was probably going for top 15 in men in the half. And about halfway point, he lost it. His race fell apart, and he ended up having to get taken away from not like bad taken away, just he ends up stopping at the halfway. And he was not having a fun day. Well, then the last person in the marathon, about ready to be run over by the cop cars, some 70-year-old lady. And I can't remember what she'd had done, but there was some medical event or something that made this a major milestone for her. She was the last person out there. The cops were chasing her, sweeping her, just keeping her going. And she was having more fun and more enjoyment with that race. And, I sat there and going, she had every reason to stop, probably in the training for it and the doing the race. She has every reason, people going, you're too old to do this. It's not good for your knees. It's not, but she was out there and she completed it and had more fun than the guy who, not to pick on you, Devin going and running a fast race is easy. Her, that was a hard thing, and that was a big accomplishment. It really meant a lot to me, just sitting there watching it going, like I say, she had every reason not to do it. So, if you're out there and you're questioning whether you can do a race, if you're going, man, I'm going to be the last person in the 5K, then you embrace it and you just have a good time with it, Be happy that you're out there doing it and you're able to do it, and, enjoy it, because you never know when you're not going to be able to.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, sometimes I do like to run fast and push myself, but the most fun times are when you slow down and you just have fun. And regardless of what pace that is, just have some fun. But I did want to just put a stamp on, how awesome Topeka is and the options. And when people say there's nothing to do in Topeka, you look them in the eyes and you're like, you are dead wrong. Because, I'm going to list some ones that are coming up off the top of my head. But, to start, you got TopCity Half, Skyline Scramble, all the group runs that, everybody puts on, all the events that are now taking place at Evergy Plaza. And I think it's just so cool how Top City starts and ends there. And it's a big, all the festivals, the Expo Center renovation, and all the events that are going on there.
Hockey back in Topeka.
Hockey back, John was very passionate, John Contrell, about supporting events in Topeka, because there's so many people that complain that there's nothing to do. It's like, no, you were wrong. You need to go out and support the events so that they will continue, so that people have, it's just, I've lived here about 10 years now, and I'm finally to the point where, this is home. I'm calling this home now. It's not just a place where I'm living, and it's awesome. I like living here. I defend it all the time, because outsiders think that it's so bad, but it's not, and it's awesome, and I'm excited to raise my family here, so it's all cool. So to pivot a little bit, and we'll wrap this up in a bit, but you just ran your first ultra marathon a few months ago, didn't you?
Well, you started off with talking about unprepared races. I think Ollie's was my unprepared race.
Right.
Was it Jonathan's? Was Manny putting together a list of all the miles for last year for Buckleheads?
Yes.
I think I still need to give her.
Well, I pulled mine for that, and don't be jealous, but I had 129 miles last year, and 30 of that was Ollie's. I was woefully under prepared, and I've been obviously, you said I've done some pacing, I've done some crewing at different races, so I knew what the atmosphere for ultras were, and I don't know if anyone knows this. So a few times going out to Wilson to pace or to help out. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you turn off 570 and start heading down there, I think the second time I went, I got emotional. It was just driving there, and I wasn't doing anything. It was just, technically, if I go there, Shane fails. But just knowing what's about ready to happen, what you're gonna see out that place, it gets you. Even just driving down to Ottawa to see those races, it's emotional. So I knew the environment. I knew what I was getting into. I went out with I wanted to do the 50K. I really wasn't sure if I'd be able to. But I started off, I think I had maybe 3 or 4 good laps where I was actually running, and then it was after that it was really just how do I keep moving. Learned a lot about socks and pebbles in your feet, and have to give a big shout out to Chris, because as I was coming in what I thought was my last loop, I had slowed down drastically, and I make fun of in a fun way of how do you only do a 20-minute mile. It's one of those, until you're there you don't understand it. But my last few loops, I was maybe doing 17-minute miles on that 2-mile loop, and I had to finish the loop. Well, came in for what I thought was my last loop, and I was short. I was over a mile short, and like I say, I think my previous 2 miles had been 35, 40 minutes, and I think I had 30 minutes to get a loop in. And, you know, I came in and Chris is like, you got to go again, you're short. And so, you know, I took off, and it was, I don't remember who, if it was Caleb or Ed or Shane had said earlier in the day, it's amazing when you get down there, when you're at the end of the race, where you find energy. And I mean, that last lap, I was putting down 14-minute miles to get done, and got done, I think, with 5 minutes to spare, got my first buckle, and not sure I ever want to get another one. No. If my wife listens to this, I don't want to get another one. But, you know, it was a fun experience. It was a fun day. It was, you know, met some new friends out on the trail there. You know, I spent a couple laps with a couple people I'd never met before. It's, you know, that's what makes it fun, and it's, you know, an experience.
Yeah, I've really grown to appreciate those short loop style courses. Like the first time I did a Patriots run, that's a one, I think it's 2 miles on asphalt, but there's like 100 some runners, and you just, every so often, you just keep seeing them. So I just think those short style loops are fun. But congrats, that's awesome, man. First ultra, that's so cool.
Yeah, that is really awesome. And again, you mentioned 20-minute miles, 14-minute miles.
Yeah.
If you're on the fence about joining a race, I'm just going to say it. Nobody cares how fast you go.
No.
Nobody cares. Like, if you're last place, those volunteers are still going to be there. They're going to have water and Gatorade and snacks or whatever else for you. And people are going to be cheering you on. Like, it doesn't matter. Just get out and have fun.
No, and it's, you know, when everyone, I think, because everyone about passed me, you know, when people pass you, you're cheering each other on. You're having a good time, and it's a fun time. And
yeah. Well, cool. Well, Mark, thanks for doing this, man. This is so much fun. I learned so much from, I don't want to say the vets in the room, but I'm the young guy in the room, and so yeah, it was fun getting to know you more so, learning about you, and just how awesome it is to have the TopCity Half Marathon in Topeka. Really, as like spring is emerging and there's energy in the city, and I hope it's successful for years and years to come. So remind us the date again.
May 4th. May
3rd.
Sorry, May 3rd, downtown Topeka, TopCity Half Marathon. If you need more information, you can go to topcity.run, TopCity Run,
cool.
Or search Facebook.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes. We'll post about it until the race, and hopefully drive some trail runners to get out there and run on the roads of Topeka. So we got some quick rapid fires if you're up for it. Brian, you got anything else before I rapid fire this stuff?
Nope, have at it. It's been great talking to Mark, and it's
like
I said, everybody get out there and run that race, or volunteer. Either way, come out and just cheer people on. Just do something.
Yeah.
Help the city.
I think Coke is going to have a tent out there, or some sort of volunteers out there.
Yeah, we're working on something with them.
Cool. All right, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Cool. What shoes are you wearing?
Brooks.
Brooks. Yeah, I'm a Brooks guy. Are you Garmin or Coros?
I'm Garmin.
Sweet. Sorry.
The only right answer.
Yep. Sorry, Garmin. There's no China tracking today. Are you music or no music?
No, I'm music. Well, actually, like when you're running, I'm a little bit of everything. I mean, I'll listen to music, I'll listen to audiobooks, I'll listen to podcasts, kind of a little bit of everything.
The Buckleheads Podcast?
Oh, only. Exclusively.
Cool. If you could have a celebrity pacer or celebrity to run with, who would it be?
Oh, I thought about this and I had a good one, and now I don't remember who it was. I'd probably go, not like a traditional runner, although some of the guys who've done like the FTKs at the Appalachian Trail, I think would just be interesting to talk with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be cool to sit down and talk with like Tara that did the FKT on the Appalachian Trail. Her YouTube monologue is so awesome. But, all right, what's your song to add to the playlist?
I would say Inner Sandman, and there was some race I was doing. It was a Kansas City race, and it's where you kind of are coming down the hill towards Crown Center, and that song came on right as I crested that hill, and I think it's probably still one of the fastest miles I ever had, because it hit. I was on a downhill and I was moving.
I think this will come out after the Super Bowl, but Metallica needs to play the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, they are the ultimate stadium NFL band. That just needs to happen. It fires you up just my little thing. So, well, cool. That's all we got. Thanks, Mark, for doing this.
I do have one more thing.
Oh.
I just want to thank Mark, Shane, Joe,
Everybody.
From knowing you, I know how much work you guys have put in, and it's been a crazy amount of work to get this race going and keep it going. And then on top of that, you maybe just finished your first ultra not long ago, but for the last 5 or 6 years, you have came out to help some others of us who are running ultras. You've been up all night long, pacing, crewing, or whatever. So it's just, I just want to say thank you for everything.
No, I will say it is almost more enjoyable, I think, crewing than. I mean, it's an accomplishment to finish, and I've not done a big ultra, but the being able to be a part of that experience is, I think, pretty special, and being sadly trusted enough when you're dealing with one of you idiots who's sleep deprived and doesn't know what's going on, and you're entrusting us to get you back out there and keep going. It means a lot.
Yeah, I always tell people that if you could bottle up that energy of like either crewing at the end of an ultra or finishing it, and like bottle it up and like sell it, like that would be the ultimate drug. But alrighty, so we got run happy, train hard, and we'll see you out there.